After a bumpy 2023, have you been struggling to incentivize, inspire, and motivate your team? Well, if so, then this episode may be for you. Today, I sit down with David Schlichter, who has the #1 team out of Denver. What is more impressive is he only has 4 selling agents with him. So they're small, but incredibly mighty. So before we begin, scroll down below and hit that subscribe button now so you can be up to date anytime a new episode drops. And as always, I'm your host and favorite San Francisco realtor, Shawn Kunkler. Thanks for joining me today, man. I really appreciate this.
Happy to do it. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. So to give the listeners a little bit of some context of you, you've obviously done a significant amount creating a #1 team in Denver. Huge accomplishment, and it's a small and mighty team. We'll definitely unpack and talk about that. But you've ridden bicycles across the country and led teens. You've worked at the White House with Obama. Like, you have an incredible journey to get to this point. It's funny with my guests, I usually know exactly where I want to dive in, but with you, it's like you have such a fascinating background this whole world prior to real estate. I want to ask you what inspired you to get into real estate, but let's actually touch on your journey to the White House first, because I feel like that's going to feed into it. So tell me more about that.
First of all, it's great to be with you here. And, I've had a very unconventional trajectory toward becoming a real estate agent. And even the trajectory to go into the White House was unexpected. I came out to Colorado after leading a group of high school kids, like you said, on a bicycle tour across the country from Savannah, Georgia to Santa Monica, California, fell in love with the mountains, felt like I had to be in Denver, but really wanted to be doing something in Denver that I was passionate about. And that's when I applied to be a teacher with Teach for America. So I taught in the public schools. And, there's a reason that programs like Teach for America exist, because the education system is pretty broken. And I got a firsthand glimpse of just kind of what was broken. So long story short, I wanted to see if I could fix education at the highest level. And that's when I went on the White House website to see if there might be an opportunity to go there and work on those issues.
That's such an interesting way to even just approach that thought. Like, most people would think, let me just boots on the ground. I'll become a teacher and just focus on the micro, and you just went total macro of like, who's the most influential person in the US that I could basically work for, which is it's just an incredible way to approach it. So I'm curious, within working at the White House, what is, if you were to say, I learned this one thing, this one skill, this one tool that applies to real estate, what is that?
When I went to the White House, and this was in the Obama administration, so I was working under President Obama, you had the opportunity to rank your issues. And my issues were education, youth, ... all the way at the bottom was business. And I was assigned to work with the business liaison to the president. And it was actually a blessing, because it exposed me to a lot of things that I didn't previously have exposure to, but also gave me a lot of exposure to the president himself. And I think more than any other intern that year, I saw him, I wrote memos to him, I interacted with him. And so the thing that I would say that I learned the most from being there is that someone like a Barack Obama, or someone that you see on TV, whether it's the president or, a highly successful business person, they're just a person. There's nothing, different about their makeup than you or I. They've just chosen to do something big. They've set a big goal, and then they've decided they're going to go out and try and do it. And I think that all of us in real estate can do the same thing. If you're a real estate agent and you have seen the names of the top producers and you want to be on that level, there's no reason why you can't be on that level. You just need to commit and decide that you're going to do it, and then figure out the strategic ways that you're going to make it happen.
That's such an interesting observation. Me, prior to getting into real estate, I was a membership director at a luxury health club, and I chose to work in that sector because I wanted to get comfortable speaking to that audience. And I knew there'd be a lot of CEOs and executives and pretty famous people who would be coming there. And I 100% agree with you. The more that I did it, the more I realized that negotiating $100 versus $1,000 versus $10,000 or $500,000, it's the same emotional path, and people have the same hopes, dreams, and fears, regardless of who they are or what their social status is. And that's interesting. That was your big takeaway. But I mean, I think I would still be starstruck meeting the president.
Well, I'd say, yeah, it was certainly pretty cool. But I think that another thing that stood out to me was the way that Barack Obama interacted with the everyday average person. You know, one of my favorite pictures from his time at the White House is a picture of him. There's a janitor who worked in the executive office building, Eisenhower Executive Office building, who I saw every day. And the picture is him kind of giving a fist bump to the janitor, and the janitor is wearing gloves, you know, to pick up the trash and whatnot. The president's not wearing gloves. The president's got the bare hand on the gloved hand of the janitor. And when you think about the history of this country, when you think about, you know, the history of sanitation workers striking, and, you know, Martin Luther King and, you know, Barack Obama, and there's this arc of history, and that he would acknowledge, you know, someone who probably many busy business people or leaders or, you know, elected officials wouldn't even notice. And not only that, but put his hand right on the, you know, the, in theory, dirty hand, you know, because he's been picking up trash all day, of the janitor, and show him that he matters. I think that that's something that we can also take away. It's really, you know, nice, you know, to represent a beautiful luxury listing that's got a, you know, fancy kitchen and tons of square footage and big TV and all that kind of stuff. But I get just as much satisfaction, if not more, from helping folks not at a luxury price point, because the impact on their life is so significant. And I think that it's important for real estate agents to remember that, you know, everybody's important. And this is a really big transaction for everybody, but especially those who don't have as much money.
I agree. I mean, a person buying one home and it's their largest investment is pretty different than somebody buying their fourth property, and it's something they may or may not be living in at all. I agree. And I adopted early on is treat everybody like your mom and treat everybody like a celebrity. Like your mom, you're going to take care of, and you're going to really try to do what's best. In a celebrity, you're going to do whatever you can to take that call immediately. Like you're not going to back burner them and wait a few days or let that lead dry up. You are going to be on top of it. So that was always my, regardless of the price point. And I think that's what's fascinating about even your story of Pete Souza's photo of Obama, is that janitor knows Obama. That's not dissimilar, or Gardner or whoever that individual is. That's not dissimilar from our industry. Is you help somebody at an introductory price point, you don't know who their parents are or their friends are or their best friend's parents are. They could be connected to somebody with a very high net worth. And if you treat them amazing, that can absolutely lead to a mega deal for you. And we all know, everybody chants and talks about this all the time, is referrals are better. They are the best, the absolute best lead that you can absolutely have at any point.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity years ago to see Pete Souza, the photographer, speak at Stanford, he shot every photo you ever see of Obama. Really, really interesting guy, and just such a unique perspective on basically being a fly on the wall through this whole experience. So that's cool that you also had that same had that opportunity to see and experience all of that. So from the White House. Where did your career go from that point?
Well, I knew I wanted to be back in Colorado. DC was never going to be, the place I was going to live forever. So I came back to Colorado again to work on education issues. I really wanted to impact education. I felt like there was a lot of opportunity in that space. And I became a community organizer for an education reform nonprofit to help families and educators and kids make sure that every kid gets the best education possible. So just like when I was a teacher, I was back in education, and I observed that things were not working so well in the nonprofit space related to education. I had a boss that wasn't great, and I decided that what, I need to be my own boss. I need to be in an industry where I'm not going to go crazy. And I've done the service. I've put forth that effort, and now I want to be in an environment where things are a little more black and white. Real estate is a really great place to be if you want to be in kind of a rational environment. The seller will take that price or they won't. The buyer's going to make that offer or they're not. It's pretty clear and pretty black and white what's going to happen in a transaction. Now, obviously, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. There's all kinds of nuance, but in education, I felt like if it didn't make sense, it was being done. If it did make sense, it wasn't being done. And real estate was a kind of a better place for my mind, where I could kind of use the skills that I had to help people with their home purchases and home sales, but also kind of get that calmness in my mind where I wasn't, in a system that felt like it was going to drive me crazy.
Totally makes sense. It sounds like you have just a natural inclination to teach and coach and kind of lead and educate people.
That is fair. And now that you mention it, so I am going to be, I lead a team in Denver. We are one of the top producing teams in Denver. And, I started out as a solo agent, doing my own deals, and got so busy that I couldn't handle all the business and I needed to bring on help. And initially I did that to basically be able to just service the business that I had coming in. There's just too much business that I could handle. But as I've been a team leader now for about 8 years or so, I've really started to get joy in helping grow other people as agents and as professionals and as people. And so I've been kind of coaching my team members to help them be as successful as possible. And this spring, I'm going to be launching a group coaching program for agents at Compass who may have experienced some success themselves. But if they were to look deep down, they might acknowledge that it maybe hasn't been a super systematic pathway to success, and that it's been success by chance or success by personality. But what I'm going to be focusing on is helping them really crush the details, build systems, make it sustainable and enjoyable for the long term and intentional. So that's what's going to be launching in the spring. It's going to be about a 6-week program, 12 sessions. And I should have more information about that in the next few weeks.
That sounds really exciting. And, especially we're now in 2024. If you just kind of reflect back, if you've been in the business for the past few years, it has been the wildest of wild rides. And, when we were at a virtual 0% mortgage rate, you didn't have to be very good. You can just kind of stand there and deals would fall into your lap. But now that the rates have gone up, the markets have slowed, inventory has changed significantly. I agree. Like, you have to be doing more of the right activities more consistently over time. And more often than not, if you've gotten by on your good looks, you probably don't have the systems in place where it's not a repeatable, sustainable business. So the program that you've put together, which sounds pretty interesting and unique, who would be the ideal agent for that? Is it an individual? Is it somebody who already has a team? It's somebody who's thinking about a team, somebody who's on a team? Who is that ideal person?
Yes, I think it could be any of the above. I think really what it is helping people to level up at work so they can slow down at home, right? So that work, as they become more and more successful, it doesn't become all consuming and that they all of a sudden, have no balance in their life. They don't see their kids. They don't see their spouse. They don't get to do the things they love. One thing that I feel really grateful for in my own business is that I'm there at breakfast with my kids. I take them to school. I drop them off. I go to school and pick them up. I'm there with them at dinner time. I'm there with them at bath time, bedtime, reading books at night. And I wouldn't be able to do those things if I hadn't structured my business in a very specific and intentional way. And I think that a lot of people think that, well, the busier you get in real estate, the more crazy your life is going to be, but the more money you'll make. And there is a different pathway where you can make a really nice income, but also have a really, rewarding personal life where you're actually present with your family. And I think that what I'm hopeful is that people who are looking for that type of career, who may have experienced some success, but need a little more structure and a little more direction and tools to help them make it sustainable for the long term. That's what I'm hoping would be a part of the coaching.
I feel that. I specifically remember being in Hawaii, day 2 on vacation, sitting on the balcony with my computer open, going back and forth on a deal, and just was like, I don't even have, this was when I was solo. And I remember thinking, I don't even have somebody that I can hand this off to, so I can just have a moment of reprieve and unburn myself out because I've been burning the candle at 3 ends for an ungodly amount of time. So I definitely think it's important, and whatever that looks like. But I agree. I think systems are unless you were naturally hardwired to be an organizer, that's probably the hardest part of the business for you. And a lot of agents are just ping pongs, just running around excessively. But to give everybody who's listening a lot more context, which I feel gives you a lot more validity, is you and your team have done over 600 deals and more than 400 million in sales.
We're almost at 400 million and almost at 700 transactions.
That's incredible. I mean, that's an incredible stat. And to give more context, it's not like you have a 100-person team or a 50-person team or a 20-person team. You have, it's 3. Am I 3 actually? 3 agents selling?
As of right now, we have 4 producing agents. We have a licensed operations director, and we have a transaction coordinator. So we are a small team. I've kept it small intentionally. And I think that, the quantity of transactions it's great that we've been able to do so many deals. And the main reason I'm happy with the quantity is because of the quality. We prioritize quality first and let the quantity come after. A lot of agents do it in reverse, right? They want to do as many deals as possible. They focus on quantity, and as a result, quality is sacrificed. And so, I've been very pleased with how we've kept the quality of the transaction, the quality experience for the consumer as our top priority. And we happen to have also done a lot of transactions.
Yeah, which I think that's actually, honestly, your secret sauce. I've had the honor and privilege of talking to a lot of amazing agents across the country. And what you're doing in that category is very, very unique. And talk to us a little bit more about that, of how you have decided to incentivize. I don't know if incentivize is the right word, but inspire the agents on your team to focus more on the quality and not just the quantity.
As a team leader, who in real estate, like most team leaders, my agents are not employees. They're 1099 independent contractors. They each are self-employed, but we are all working together to build something that is greater than the sum of its parts. And it's difficult when somebody's not your employee to get them aligned with the things that you want to do, unless you're very intentional about it. And so one thing that I've done with my team is create some alignment around incentives that prioritize the things that will make us successful as a team and will make our clients have the best experience possible. So one thing that I've done is create what I call the bonus pool, which is a profit sharing program. And the way it works is that for every transaction that one of my team members closes, a set amount of that transaction is set aside into this bonus pool. And at the end of each quarter, for those agents that qualify, they get their prorated share of this bonus pool based upon what activities they did that were beneficial to the team. So for instance, did they get a good review, a 5-star review? Did they generate business that they brought in themselves? Did they fill in for an open house at a team listing? Did they cover for a team member who left town because they needed to go see an ailing family member? All the activities that I'm trying to incentivize as a team leader, I have as a part of this point system that people earn points for. And then at the end of the quarter, if they've earned a lot of points and they qualify for the bonus program, they get a lot of money. And so that's one way that I incentivize it as a team leader without requiring, specific activities that it can't require when somebody's an independent contractor. But I found it to work really well, and it's not really something that most people are doing right now.
No, I haven't heard of it, and I think it's pretty unique. And again, to give people a little bit more context, because you and I have had conversations off air, but the total bonus pool last year was 6 figures. That's incredible.
2022 it was over $100,000 of bonus pool, and a lot of agents, a lot of coaches, a lot of team leaders would say, that's you are giving your clients too much, or your team members too much. But I believe that when you reward people well for their hard work and for doing things that are good, they are more likely to want to stick with you for the long term and be a part of the building of that special thing. And so, our turnover as a team is very low. When I have client events and, people have been coming for 5 or 10 years and they see the same people over and over again, I think it gives them confidence in our team, and it gives them a sense of stability that when you have a constant rotating cast of characters on other teams, you just don't get that same experience. So I found a way to make this totally profitable, but also, really rewarding financially for my team members. And it's something that I think that more team leaders could be doing.
Yeah, I think a really great philosophy that I adopted early on, and it sounds like you have too, is if you treat people really, really well, and you give them enough tools that they can leave literally at any point, but you're providing so much value so they never want to, that's true leadership. And that's a really solid team. And the other side of it is too, if you have a large bloated team and 1 or 2 people are winning all the time, and then the other 8 people are just struggling, that's not success. That's sure. You may have as a team lead, you may have really great numbers, but that's not, you have 8 really miserable people who are just having trouble making ends meet. That's not, I really appreciate the way that you've approached it, which it's the rising tide lifts all ships, and all of your agents are on that level. And to go back to the quality piece, you're right. If hypothetically I go to my dentist and I see the same supporting cast throughout the office, and I see them year after year after year after year, I also build a relationship with all of those people, but it subconsciously tells me that they really enjoy what they do, and they really enjoy who they're doing it with. And it's a really great place to work, would be my assumption, rather than if it's every time I show up, it's somebody new and I have to introduce myself and they're fumbling through files. To your point earlier, that erodes the quality of my experience. And so when all these people are familiar with each other, it really changes it tremendously. So to kind of bounce back a little bit with this point system, what are some of the things that are on there? And then at what intervals are you reviewing these with the people, with the agents on your team? And then I guess a layer question deeper is, are you doing this individually or group settings? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, the beautiful thing about this system that I've created, and it's something that I'll be, teaching as part of the group course, the group coaching program that I'm doing, is that you can tailor it to the needs of your specific team, right? So just because I'm incentivizing one thing doesn't mean that the next team leader in Seattle or Chicago or San Francisco doesn't want to incentivize something else. Somebody might be really focused on getting new construction deals, or maybe it's all about sellers or it's all about buyers or whatever the thing they want to incentivize is. You can not only pick the things that work for your team, but you can also weigh them differently. So, for instance, if somebody gets a 5-star review, you might weigh that differently than I might weigh that, right? I run a reputation-based business where we're focused on quality, like I said earlier. Reviews are really, really important to our team. But for other folks, it might be, the team members themselves sourcing business. That might be something they want to incentivize. So every team leader who makes a system like this can choose to, incentivize and weigh as they see fit the things that matter most to their team. The way that I, go about tallying this at the end of I do it every quarter. We tally it up. I have a one-on-one meeting with each team member at the end of each quarter, although this year we're meeting even more frequently to help people, have the most successful year possible. And we just walk through what their quarter was like. How many deals did you do? How many deals did you source? How are you doing your non-real estate goals, your personal goals? One of my team members last year really wanted to spend more time with her family. Another one was a new dad and wanted to learn what that's like. And so we're checking in on the team stuff. We're checking on their individual production. We're also checking on their personal goals. I do that specific kind of check-in once a quarter, but then we're meeting even more frequently than that on a one-on-one basis. And we have weekly team meetings as well.
Within, say, like the weekly ones, are they individually tracking these other things on their own?
Well, yes, they are. We're tracking most of it, and then they at the end fill us in. Like, we don't always have visibility on, Shawn did a showing for, David. Therefore, let us know if there were any showings that we weren't aware of, things like that. But people are tracking it themselves, and we're tracking it as well.
Do you have any incentive programs built into the non-1099 people? So any of your actual employees?
So I have a full-time employee who's an operations director. And when you're a team leader, you have fixed costs and you have variable costs. And typically a team leader is paying for just about every expense of the team. And then maybe, some things you got to spend no matter what. Some things are subjective, or elective. And some things vary depending upon the number of transactions you do. If you want to mitigate risk in terms of cost risk as a team leader, what you want to do is have as much of the compensation of any full-time employees be variable. So in other words, if we are doing this much volume, or if our team members are this successful, or if clients are this happy, or whatever the metric is, have the compensation be tied to those things that then will ensure that your risk to profitability is lowest. However, from the employee's perspective, some employees prefer to have a lot of stability and certainty with regard to their compensation, with little maybe upside for incentive-based compensation, and others prefer to have lower certain compensation if the total potential compensation could be even higher. And so I think that for the team leader, aka the employer, I think it's really up to you to think about what you need for your team, and also think about with your prospective employee or current employee what's going to work for them. And then just like a real estate transaction, there can be a negotiation. So maybe you want it to be a little bit more variable, they want it to be a little more fixed, or maybe you want it to be whatever the situation is, you can figure it out with them and negotiate a fair deal. Works for everybody.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all incentivized different. We all have different risk tolerance. I feel like most agents, they get it of you kill what you eat, or you eat what you kill. And there's a thrill to that. Whereas support staff, they tend to want more of the consistency, and they don't like the risk of this this ping pong of money. And so, yeah, you have to figure out one of the best quotes I've ever heard is you can only influence people by things that already influence them. And so you have to have conversations. You have to learn about people. Fascinating. I really genuinely, I like your approach of, you basically didn't start with the team. You started with the client and then backed into how to essentially have or motivate or inspire the team to deliver on that. And so figuring out the DNA of what the client is and then what you, the company, the team is actually about, and building and parlaying all of that together. It's such an interesting approach. When you were at that threshold, when you were solo but starting to drown, who was your first hire?
I was at Keller Williams for 7.5 years before coming to Compass. And most real estate agents are familiar with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, written by Gary Keller. It's a big red book. And in that book, the first hire that's recommended is an assistant. And a lot of people will still recommend that an assistant be your first hire. When I made my first hire, it was somebody who could do three things. One, hourly work for just, one-off tasks that needed to be done. Two, the showings for specific buyers who I wanted to be able to help them out and handle their transactions, but I was too overloaded trying to be everywhere at once, and I needed somebody just to get them into the properties, but beyond that, I could take care of the rest of the transaction. And then three, representing some clients from start to finish, not just the showings, but also the contract writing, the negotiating, et cetera. And those were folks that maybe they were looking significantly farther geographically, had maybe a significantly lower likelihood of actually purchasing a place, where I wanted to give somebody experience in representing a buyer from start to finish, but at the same time, it wasn't necessarily going to make the most sense for me to be the person to represent that specific buyer. So that worked really well. But again, I did that a little bit differently than most agents do. So first of all, I think most agents wouldn't have those three tasks be their first hire. But second, the way that I compensated the person for when they were doing the showings, for example, most people, well, I shouldn't say most, compensation is negotiable. And, people pay whatever they pay for a showing assistant. What I chose to do was give the showing assistant portion of that transaction or portion of their role when they were showing somebody properties but not doing the rest of the deal, a 10% base of the commission plus up to another 15% of the commission based upon the client's review of the showing assistant. So if the showing assistant did a really, really great job, 5 out of 5 stars, they could get up to 25% of that transaction just for doing the showings. They may have done one showing, they may have done 50 showings, but again, it was about, and it didn't start at 25 yet. You had to scale up to that, but it was really about ensuring that at every opportunity, the client experience comes first, and that's how we measure our success, is if our clients are happy. And I think that, like you kind of suggested, it's kind of a novel approach in real estate, for lack of a better description, and it's a real shame because basically every buyer or seller, they want that to be the approach of their agent, right? They want you to be there to help them achieve their goals, not for you to achieve your goals. But I think that a lot of agents forget about it. They forget that why they're there to begin with. And it really is to help people make their real estate goals their reality. And if you can do that for them, then you can also be, have a lucrative financial, career. But I think that, yes, that makes our team a little bit different. Yes, that makes my approach a little bit different, but I wish that more agents incorporated that as an essential part of their business, is ensuring that client satisfaction is first and foremost, because if they're not satisfied, why are you really in this business?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a great point. And I mean, we've all heard about this, is people having commission breath. And it's when you have that little thing playing in the back of your head of, I got to close this deal. I have to close the deal. You sacrifice quality and you just focus on this other thing that the buyer or the seller, they sniff it out. But if you have the record that's playing in the background of, how do I get 5 stars? How do I just provide so much value and service that they're overwhelmingly wanting to give me this amazing review? Your whole approach, like your entire approach from beginning to end, is completely different. And I can absolutely see how that increases and raises the quality. And not for nothing, but then that person, especially buyers, they're then in their home, they're raving about you to their neighbors, to all of their friends when they have their first housewarming party. They've had such an amazing experience with you. They're bragging to all of their friends, to everybody they know, about what an amazing job you did, rather than the other side of, oh, we felt totally rushed and I'm not sure if this was the right house, but we bought it anyways.
Yeah.
What I like about your approach to the whole business is you're very thoughtful before you execute, and you really just think about what's the greater impact. And I mean, it goes back to your whole point of, rather than teaching 25 kids in one classroom and having a small impact on them, you're like, I'll just work at the White House and have this massive impact on this huge swath of people across all 50 states, it's just such an amazing lens that you view all of this from. So kudos. I'm really looking forward to, when you launch, hearing more about the program. So definitely keep me in the loop of your whole coaching journey. I think that's it's a really cool direction that you're going with that. So you made your first hire, you based it off of the 3 criteria, which again, it wasn't conventional, but you had a very thoughtful approach. It wasn't just a panic hire of like, I need a warm body, you'll do, come work with me. But again, you had like a very thoughtful approach. At what point did you decide to really turn it up and start expanding and building out the team?
When I first started expanding, beyond myself, the reason was because I had too many buyers that I could handle. And, you just can't be everywhere at once, right? And when you're working with a lot of buyers, one person wants to be on the east side of town, one person wants to be at the west side of town at the same time. It just doesn't work, right? So I needed help with the buyers. But when it really took the team to the next level was when I decided that I was going to stop representing buyers entirely. And not that our team was going to stop representing them, but I was going to stop being the person that was doing those transactions. And the reason that I wanted to do that was because I went from being, when I started in real estate, I went from being unmarried but in a serious relationship to married to being a parent of 3 kids, which is a lot, and I just want to be the kind of dad that is able to be around for stuff. I want to be around for dinner time, for bedtime, books, etc. I want to be around for soccer games, piano lessons, all that kind of stuff. And I found that working with buyers who might want to see properties on short notice, particularly on evenings and weekends, was fundamentally incompatible with the kind of dad that I wanted to be. So when I decided to stop doing buyer transactions completely, that is really when I think we started to take our team to the next level and have, really strong operational support, really strong systems. And we've just kind of been sharpening the pencil every year, getting better and better. And what I found is that the more structure, the more systems, the more processes, the more predictable everything is, the better it is for everybody. The better it is for the buyer's agents on my team, the better it is for me, the better it is for our clients, the more consistent the experience is. And so I think that if there was one thing that was probably the turning point, that'd probably be it.
I 100% agree with you. I think having systems and process in place, it ensures that regardless of who on the team is facilitating the transaction, it's being facilitated the same way. And then that just allows so much freedom for that individual agent to let their personality actually shine through and do the best job for that person, because they're not panicking at 3 a.m. of like, oh, darn it, did I send over that disclosure? Where's that piece of paper? It's like everything is being handled and taken care of. Which, yeah, I feel the pain of those individual agents who don't yet have those systems in place, and they're kind of ping ponging around. It's once you start having systems in place, it relieves such a huge layer of stress. I can't even begin to describe how much easier and smoother it makes life across the board. So with your own personal trajectory, do you then just focus on listings currently?
Yes, I focus on representing sellers and overseeing our team. The other thing that I would say is that by specializing in representing sellers, I become a much better seller's agent. If you look at our track record of results from the last year, our showings per listing was 2.8 times higher than the average agent in Denver. Our listings went under contract 50% faster. Our average sale price was over $150,000 more than the average agent. We sold 28.7, I think, times the amount of real estate that the average agent did. So when you start to specialize, I find that you become much better at doing that type of transaction. Now, I don't require that my buyer's agents only do purchase transactions. I do think it's important to have exposure to the other side. But for me as a seller's agent, it has made me much better just to focus on those transactions. And then it's also given me the bandwidth to make our team as successful as it's been, because I'm not running around town showing buyers. I'm able to look at our team at a high level, think about, what are we missing? Where are there opportunities? Where can we grow? What do we need to do differently? So it's worked out really well.
That's really cool. I like that path. And I agree. When I went from focusing more on buyers to doing my first listing, when I started receiving offers, I feel like I learned tenfold more of what to do and what not to do when I was on the buy side. And it's amazing. You get 10 offers and 2 of them were outshining the rest. And those 2 agents did things that were very special and uniquely different. And the other 8, it's astonishing at how little they did, little effort, incomplete. Like there was, I was just blown away at the vast difference. And so I agree. I think being on both sides, it expedites your learning curve tremendously, because you have just a real different experience. And then you understand the building that relationship as the buyer's agent with the listing agent is a game changer. And it backs into figuring out how to sell your client's offer to that agent who's ultimately going to sell it to their seller.
100%. And I think that, what you just said, building a relationship with the listing agent as the buyer's agent is so important. When I first started in real estate, the thought of becoming friends with other real estate agents was literally revolting to me. I thought, why would I ever want to be friends with my competition? I don't want to know these people. I don't, they're not as good as me. I don't want anybody to know them, all that kind of stuff. And I think that if I look back on my career as a real estate agent, the thing that I have shifted most, on, is that very mindset. That it couldn't be more important to have relationships with other agents. And in Denver, for example, there's about 25,000, 27,000 real estate agents. There's a lot of agents, but most of them, are not doing a whole lot of business. And then there's a core group of agents that is doing a ton of business. And when you have relationships with those high producing agents, it can help your clients get offers accepted. It can help you know whose offer is more likely to close if you're representing a seller. But also you can just establish a level of trust that can be the difference maker between a buyer and a seller being able to overcome some sort of disagreement, because there's this pre-existing relationship between the agents. And so for any new agents out there that are listening who are kind of averse to having relationships with other agents, knowing other agents, becoming friends with other agents, I would say challenge yourself to change your mindset, because that can be a very big difference maker, not only for you, but also for your clients.
Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, I've literally been nodding yes in agreement the entire time. I my business flipped. It was like somebody literally flipped a switch when I realized that our colleagues are not our competition, but they're actually our allies. And when it's an incredibly competitive situation, the agent has influence over the seller, and you can definitely just, it can change the landscape, especially if you have a good, to your point earlier, a really good reputation of fully vetting your clients, making sure they're fully prepared to go to the finish line before they write this offer. And it gives that the listing agent a huge layer of confidence that you'll get the job done, because at the end of the day, they don't want to have to keep starting this project over. And those relationships, I've gotten so many calls, which I feel blessed for, by, not being number one in terms of price or in terms of offer, but getting the call and saying, hey, you actually have everything else is the strongest, and we have the most confidence in you. If you can get to XYZ, we can move you to the next level, or it's going to put you in a better position. And it goes back to relationship, not just with the client, but within the community. There's agents who leave a trail of broken glass, and it's so detrimental. It's detrimental to their clients, and they don't even know it.
Yeah, totally.
Genuinely. I mean, I feel like most very high top performing agents understand things on a very different level. And I feel that the way that you've approached your business and really focusing on the relationship components and building out a really quality relationship I can just see it clear as day. It's pushed your whole business in a completely different trajectory. Keep me posted on your coaching program. This still has to go through edit and clean up and all of that good stuff, but we'll make sure that some information gets translated into the description of the show so people can actually look you up if they want to have another conversation. This hour flew by. I really, David, genuinely appreciate your time and how just candidly and openly you've shared so much amazing information with our audience. This is great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to do it.
And that is a wrap.
All right. Take care.